Are you thinking about moving to the Seattle area? On this video, I'm going over some of the top questions people ask me when they're talking about moving over here. So stay tuned. If this is your first time to the channel, feel free to subscribe here so you don't miss any of my future videos on what it's like living over here in the Seattle area. People just like yourself reach out to me here from YouTube all the time when they're looking to make the move over and purchase a home over here. I'm an active real estate agent here in the Seattle area, so if you need help moving over here and purchasing that home, finding that right neighborhood for you, feel free to reach out to me here at my info on the screen. But like I said, in this video, I'm gonna go over some of the top, asked questions that I get. I've been doing these YouTube videos for almost 2 years now. So I've had a ton of people reach out. I've helped a lot of you that have moved here from out of state settle into a place, find that home, and start the next journey in your life over here. And I've gotten a ton of questions over the last 2 years on, different aspects of what it's like to live over here. So I've compiled a list of the top 10 that I get the most often, and I'm gonna answer them here for you. So taking a look at the list here. So number one, is there a homeless problem? I get this question all the time. There's a lot of homeless around here. Depends where you are. Seattle Metro is a very large area. So if you're going to be right in Seattle itself, in downtown Seattle, yes, there is absolutely a homelessness issue down there in Seattle. What comes along with that is tent cities. You can see needles on the ground sometimes. All that comes along with that homeless crisis and that drug issue down in that area. You do have that all throughout the Seattle, downtown Seattle, and some of the other neighborhoods in Seattle. As you go further north and further south, you're going to see a lot less of that. Some cities will still have some homeless, activity, especially when you get close to the freeway, close to I-5, you're going to see some of that. It completely depends what city you're in. There are plenty of cities around here where there is zero homeless hanging around, homelessness issues in those cities, specifically on the east side of Seattle, in Bellevue, Kirkland, and Redmond. Even when you go up north, most of the cities up there, you're not going to have an issue with that homelessness like you do in the downtown Seattle area. So for most people, if you're not moving into downtown Seattle, it's not an issue when you're coming over here. Question number two I get all the time is, what's the weather really like? Everybody hears that, hey, Seattle, it rains like crazy. It's the rainiest place in the country that you can live. And that's, it's not true. It does rain here quite a bit. That is true. It's not the rainiest place in the country that you can move to. When they compile, most annual volume of rain in the U.S. Per metro area, Seattle's not even the top 10. We don't get a huge volume of rain. We get a good amount of rainy days, but it's not torrential downpours for the most part. It's more drizzly, misty type of rain. We do get a good amount of rainy days here though. And along with that comes a lot of gray days. So you'll have a lot of gray weather. Even if you don't have rain that day, you can get a lot of gray overcast days. When you look up the stats, Seattle area here gets on average about 170 days of sun per year. So, about half the year we get a sunny day, and about half the year you're gonna have a gray day. So summers are absolutely beautiful here. Really great temperatures where it doesn't get too extremely hot, and constant sun throughout the summer. And then in the winter, it's going to be gray almost the entire winter. We're going to have overcast skies, very gray all winter. And then in the fall and the spring, you get a bit of a mix of both. You're going to have some sunny days, and you're going to have definitely a good amount of gray days as well. So it's not as much the rain that gets people, it's the gray overcast days. The trade-off there is much more mild temperatures in this area. We don't have the extreme winters getting pounded with snow constantly, well below freezing constantly, and we don't get the extreme summers where it's well above 90, 100 degrees constantly. So that's the trade-off there, is you get a bit more mild temperatures on average over here, and you have a bit more gray weather. Question number three I get all the time, are people friendly in this area? Absolutely, I think so. There is that term, the Seattle freeze, that you hear pretty often around here. This is another one where, again, it just depends where you are. If you're right in Seattle, you're downtown Seattle, that can be more prevalent in that Seattle area where it's very hustle and bustle. People are moving around quickly, getting to and from work. They're not concerned as much about the people around them. And then there's plenty of areas around here, plenty of cities where they're very community oriented. Super nice people around here, great areas to make friends with families and other individuals. So again, it depends where you are. I think that whole Seattle freeze thing is a little bit overplayed. With as many people as I've helped out move over here, a lot of them have told me, hey, they haven't experienced that. They found that everybody's really friendly. I found the same thing. There's a lot of friendly people around here. Question number 4, is it really expensive to live here? Sure, on average, it's more expensive to live here than most of the country. Depends where you're coming from. A lot of you that have come here, contacted me from YouTube, have come from California, and it's cheaper for you to live here. The important things to know is housing prices. Yes, we're higher than the national average, absolutely, on housing prices. A bit lower than California as a whole when you kind of compare some of those tech areas. Along with that, higher paying jobs here. That's a big reason why it's more expensive to live here, is because there are a lot more high paying jobs in this area than really the majority of the rest of the United States. So that's what comes along with those higher home prices and rental prices and things like that. When it comes to taxes, we have one of the highest sales taxes here in the Seattle area that you'll find in the country. However, there's no state income tax in Washington. That's a huge, huge plus. For most of you that are coming from other states, you have state income tax. Here in Washington, no state income tax, so that can save you a good buck there. On average, though, it is more expensive to live here in the Seattle metro area than the rest of the country, other than maybe California, New York, a few places. But you've got higher paying jobs to kind of help offset that a little bit and make it reasonable for some people that are moving over here and taking those higher paying jobs. Question number 5, is there anything to do there in the winter? Yes, there is. We are a very outdoorsy area. This is the Pacific Northwest. There is no better place to be if you enjoy the outdoors than the Pacific Northwest. Of course, in the summer, we've got all the lakes and rivers and Puget Sound, a lot of stuff that you can do. We have mountains over here, so you can get quick access to going snowboarding and skiing. No matter where you are in the Seattle metro area, you're gonna have access to a snowboarding or skiing location within an hour and a half or quicker to get there. There's still, with the weather over here, as we don't experience extreme temperatures, it's much more mild. Sure, it's going to be cold in the winter, absolutely. This isn't California. It's going to be 30 to 40 degrees, 45 degrees, somewhere in there most of the winter. But if you're okay with that, you can still go hiking around here, and you can go mountain biking, and there's still plenty of stuff that you can do outdoors here in the winter time, so you're not just cooped up in the house all the time. Question number 6, is there a lot of crime in this area? One good resource that I recommend people go to use is called crimegrade.org. Go to this website, you can plug in a zip code of any area that you're looking at here in the Seattle metro area, and it'll pull up an interactive map for you where you can zoom in, zoom out, drag left, drag right, up and down, look at all these different neighborhoods, and it'll rate the crime, overall crime, property crime, kind of break it down for you. And this is really the best resource that I have found when it comes to crime. I often recommend my clients look at it as they're starting to shop for homes and look at certain neighborhoods. This is the best resource for you. Like any area, like any large metro area, there are some areas that are much heavier in crime than others. You see on this map, a red rated area is heavier crime. A green rated area is much less crime. So just go to this site if you're considering moving to this area, and that's something that's very important for you to consider. And look at this map and look at these different areas, and it will give you a good baseline of what you might be able to expect in these cities, in these neighborhoods. Number 7, what is public transportation like? So it depends where you live. If you live in Seattle, there are a number of options of public transportation. We have the light rail system, which currently will go as far south as the airport, and it'll take you up to Northgate. So you can go to places like University District, you can go to Capitol Hill, you can go to Westlake. There's all different stops along the way along this light rail system. It's relatively cheap to use, anywhere from $2 to $3, depending how far you're going each way. What I will say is they do not monitor this. Most people just straight walk on the train. There's no ticketing. There's a ticketing system where you purchase the tickets at the kiosk there. Nobody checks tickets. There's nobody monitoring who's getting on and off the train, so that is what it is. I always pay when I go, but a lot of people don't pay and they just walk on the train. This is the main source of transportation along I-5 outside of driving yourself that a lot of people are using to get to and from work, to and from the airport, things like that. This system is expanding over the years. It's going to start heading east. It is heading east right now. They're working on it to go over Lake Washington into the Bellevue and Redmond area. So there will be stops over there. There's a stop going in right by the Microsoft campus. So that is coming here in the next couple of years. And then it's going to keep going north as well. I mentioned it stops at Northgate area right now. It's got a Mount Lake Terrace station going in and a Linwood station going in next. So it will keep expanding up north as well to support those commuters that are going into the Seattle area for work, or again, going to the airport, something like that. Outside of that light rail system, if you're in downtown Seattle, there's some streetcars as well to get you to and from some closer spots. You've got buses, of course, all around the Seattle metro area. So if that's something that you might want to consider, is a bus. And, you know, of course, the regular Ubers and all that kind of stuff. And there's a bunch of people that bike as well around here. So that's your main source of public transportation in these areas. Question number 8 is along the lines of pests and bugs and wildlife. What are you going to experience when you're over here? Again, depends where you are. If you're living right in the Seattle area, you're not going to experience a whole lot of wildlife at all. If you're like right along I-5 in one of these very dense neighborhoods, you're not going to experience a whole lot of wildlife. The wildlife that we do have out here, we've got some coyotes and cougars. You know, I've never seen one. I've been here my entire life. I've never seen one. You can hear them howling in the distance, and every once in a while somebody will see one. Never seen one myself. Been here my entire life. You will have some bear every once in a while. This is another one I have never seen. Been here my whole life, never seen a bear around here. But you can go on those Facebook groups, and every once in a while somebody will post, you know, they live out in Woodinville or somewhere pretty wooded, and they'll spot a bear on their property. Every once in a while you'll see that. It's not an issue you're going to be dealing with on a consistent basis. Most of you will never even see one when you're over here. I had somebody ask me the other day if we have snakes around here. Really, no. You know, you might see a garden snake here and there. I've probably seen a garden snake 5 times maybe in my whole life since I've been here. One of those little thin garden snakes going through the grass into a little pond or something. Again, snakes are not going to be an issue over here. You're not going to have to deal with. What's, you know, most common around here, kind of pests that we deal with, are rats and mice. All of our homes here in Washington, for the most part, in the Seattle area, are on crawl spaces, not on slabs. So on crawl spaces, you can have pests get in under your house. They can then go through your insulation and tear some stuff up, leave, you know, feces behind, all that kind of stuff. It is not uncommon at all for homes to have rats or mice under them. Now, this can be easily remediated. You just get a company in there that can go remediate this and remove them, set traps, block access, and remove them from your house. This is very common for us to see on inspections and for us to get fixed by a rodent remediation or crawl space company. So this is common, relatively easy to overcome and fix. Outside of that, you know, you've got raccoons around here. You know, I think that's pretty common everywhere to have raccoons. We don't really have big termite problems. I know some areas it's standard to get a termite inspection when you buy a home. Not over here. We just do not have much in the way of termite problems. Regular house spiders, all that kind of stuff is around here, but we don't really have anything extreme around here. That's what's nice about living in this area. There's not huge extremes when it comes to wildlife, pests, bugs, anything like that. We've got the pretty typical stuff, and there's some oddities that you might see. You're going to see deer pretty often. I see deer all the time around here. Of course, they're not going to hurt you. They're just pretty to look at, and just make sure you don't hit one on a dark road with no street lights in the middle of nowhere. Other than that, you know, not an issue whatsoever. So you don't have huge issues with pests and wildlife over here. Question number 9 is, are there rural areas to live over here? Absolutely. In the Seattle metro area, there is a lot of opportunities to live in a more rural location. If you're right along I-5 on the west side of Seattle metro, you're going to be in a dense, more populated area, more dense populated city. But as you head further east, there's going to be a lot more rural areas. So on the north side, you've got places like Arlington and Lake Stevens and Snohomish and Monroe that have some very rural settings where you can feel like you're pretty far out. You can have an acre, 5 acres, 20 acres. You can also still be within 10 to 15 minutes of your grocery store and all the stuff that you need. So that's the nice thing about this area. Of course, there's areas where you can go super rural if you don't want to be near anybody, near another living soul. No cell service, things like that. You can go super far out too, but there's a lot of settings in this Seattle metro area where you can feel pretty rural, have a good amount of property, have a really private lot, a wooded lot, and still be relatively close into the daily amenities, weekly amenities that you will need without being too far out in the boonies. All right, and question number 10, the last question that I get all the time here is, hey, people reach out to me all the time when they're moving over here and need some assistance, and they ask, do you help with rentals? Can you help renters get into properties? For the most part, I'm not able to help with rentals over here. A lot of the property managers in this area don't co-op with real estate agents. Some do, but a lot of them don't. So it gets sometimes tough for me to work with rentals. I typically just work with purchasing and helping buyers purchase a home in this area. However, if you're in the boat of moving over here and you're going to rent, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to send you some resources on some places to look for rentals, things to look out for, things like that, and can give you some advice and any help along the way that might be helpful to you. But that rounds out the list of the top 10 questions that I get. If you've got any other questions that were answered on this video, like I said, I'm an active real estate agent over here. Feel free to reach out to me here at my info on the screen, or just drop a comment down below on this video. Be more than happy to address your question and help you with that move and that transition over here to the Seattle metropolitan area. Thanks for watching this one.